Yo, how are you doing, folks? Welcome to episode 40 of the Simpa Life Podcast with me, as always, Mr. Simpa. I am joined with my co-host and cohort, Mr. Maka. How are you today, sir? I kind of got that right.
You fucked that up again. No, you did it again.
This
is the second time, people. This is the second time, right? And we're gonna stick with it. But yeah, with me today is myself and the co-host, Maka. Hello. Yeah, I'm doing very well for once. We'll chalk that down to heat, although for once I'm not sticky all over, which is a bonus, I guess, to say the least.
That's for extra content, folks. Please check out Patreon for a sticky Maka.
A sticky Maka. Ooh, that does not sound
good.
Do not
Google that. Do not Google that.
Yeah. Everybody's just gonna fucking Google that 100%.
Yep. All right, I want to see it I want to see it trending at least. It's probably a drink. It's a drink in a bar somewhere. No, very seedy, very darkly, dimly lit bar. You know.
Immediately, I thought about apples. You know, toffee apples, sticky toffee apples, but covered in ground up maca powder. So that could be a thing.
Put some maca nation.
Yeah. Nutty apples. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, we're here for the week, by the way. Just
right, this is going to be great fun, folks. It really is. Luckily joined last minute by one of my good friends this evening, who has worked within the hemp sector for the past few years, having quit being a publican. Interesting transition. We shall cover this. She's previously worked for British Cannabis as well as for Hempen, the hemp collective down in the south of the UK. You have taken that knowledge and opened up the Cupboard Hemp and CBD shop stroke cafe down in Chesham. But also recently, I do believe you ran for local council. So we'll also be covering that. So tonight's guest is Deborah Wilbee. How are you doing, Debs?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. Like you were just identifying quite sweaty. That's just how it is right now. Yeah. But yeah, it's nice to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're very welcome.
So I mean, you touched on there just like moving from publican to cannabis, but I mean, really, it's not that different when you think about it. Even the plants themselves are cousins, right?
Yeah.
And you know, ideally in the future, well, I mean, you know, in some people's ideal, in some way, it would be nice to see some kind of regulated license, not the way that it's going at the moment, by the way, but, you know, some kind of licensed place for people to enjoy cannabis in the way that we do alcohol now. But obviously it would be much safer for people to do that. So, yeah, I mean, you say, yeah, it was a strange transition, but at the same time, not like it's within licensed drugs, you know, and providing them to the public in a nice setting that they can enjoy.
Yeah, I suppose it is.
So
I mean, there is an awful lot of positives in that transition as well, especially say in the pub that I worked at when I first landed in London. We had to do a significant amount of training on different types of beer and different types of wine, and I loathed it at the start because it was extra unpaid work that you had to show up for, but at the same time it did make me appreciate things that were like what I now consider piss water, that, you know, all the standard generic nonsense that you get, and then you have like the really niche craft beers and stuff like that, and you can when you can differentiate between all the different ingredients and you know, and all the different notes and tasting and flavors and stuff, and you can communicate that well enough to your punter, I find that a massive positive. So for me, I absolutely want that. I want to be able to grow at home. Obviously, for myself, I want medical access for people that need it medically, you know. But at the same time, if I'm off out with my mates, I want to go to a place, and I want to go to a fucking place that people know what the fuck is in the plant. Or not necessarily, you know what I'm trying to say. They know about the cultivar, Simpa. Do you know that kind of way? It would be a fantastic experience, especially with food, you know? Anyway, sorry.
When you go to a specialist... but it's because in our minds, it's easy for us to see that cannabis is no different. It's something that we consume like food, like drink. And, you know, there's specialists, like we love the service industry is booming. People love having experiences now, as opposed to buying stuff and having stuff. We'd like to go out and have experiences, and going to like these niche little places like the craft beers. You can go to these like microbreweries where they actually brew it on site, so things like that. But we're living ahead of our time, obviously, in my mind. I mean, and in places in Canada and American places, wherever, it's obviously happening. But you could go to that place, you know, where they're growing it, and you can learn how to make hash, and you can, you know, learn the craft of cannabis. But no. But I mean, I guess becoming involved in cannabis really awakened me politically as well. Before, I had absolutely no idea. I was like, politics, no idea. It wasn't on my radar at all. Mm-hmm. But I had been smoking cannabis for the last like 18, 20 years, every single day, pretty much wherever I'd worked in the world. It always found its way to me. And I didn't think of that as being political. It was just something that I did, you know. And then after I quit the pub and I was driving around, and then CBD started coming out, and it was like, oh, okay, what's this all about then? And I was like, okay, CBD is from hemp. Hemp is legal to farm in the UK. There must be a farm in the UK. Hemp Farm UK, Hempen pops up, and they're looking for volunteers. So I go there, and I kind of have that experience that we're talking about. I mean, I got to meet with experts because people flocked to this place where it was growing, and you could talk about it freely, and not just as a textile or for the seed, but actually about the flower. We ran quizzes for the volunteers, you know, cannabis quizzes. It was fantastic. Had a great time. And then realizing that this country is the world's largest exporter, and we all know the story, you know. But that was really the moment that switched it for me. My cannabis and my politics came together, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here? This isn't right. And the whole red pill, blue pill thing, you know, once you have seen, you cannot unsee, and the whole facade started coming down, and I was just like, oh shit. So and I thought, I hate moaning. Like, I fucking hate moaning, you know, and not just I'm talking about other people, but myself. When I start to moan, I wind myself up like something chronic. So what I do to stop myself moaning is action. And I just try and like think, how can we fix this? How can we solve this quickly? What's the route to action? What's the route to power here? And my brain just was like, okay, council. I'm in the town that I grew up in. I ran a pub here. I've got a good reputation. Fuck it. I'm gonna just go independent, you know? And I did it. I didn't, you know, I was unsuccessful. I wasn't elected. However, I didn't lose. I beat Labour, which these days isn't really much to brag about, but I did it. You know, and for me, that is still the route. We've just elected in this constituency the first non-conservative MP for the first time ever in the constituency's history. Nice. Sarah Green, she's a Liberal Democrat, you know, and it feels like she seems like a fairly normal person. Do you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't feel too far removed from she's my age. She had her own business. She was obviously switched onto politics a lot sooner than I was, like when she was at university and stuff. Whereas with me, I was doing other things, let's just say that. I wasn't doing politics. But you know, and that's what I related to her. And like, it's really refreshing for me to see someone like that in that position. And like, she's had the same thought pattern as me, I think, you know. How do I change this? I need to get to there. I need to be in the House of Commons. I need to be saying these things, and we need to be brave and put ourselves in these positions and try and get there, or disrupt it or something, you know. Do Dawn Butler, woo! Yeah. Tell it like it fucking is, you know? Yeah. Not be afraid to speak the truth.
Yeah, this is what more people need, is to follow their curiosity, their genuine passion, and to borrow a fucking metaphor, the little red threads of life. You know what I mean? The things that'll take you in the direction you're supposed to go. They appear in the most absurd of scenarios and situations, and it takes a certain alignment of consciousness to go, that seems weird, but I'm going to engage with it. That seems like something completely abstract from the norm, but I'm going to engage with it. And often if we go with this with a curiosity, but not a naivety, the roads are wondrous in terms of the journey and the destinations they lead to. So exactly, to have gone from a publican, and in my image, obviously I know you personally, but in my head, when I think of then someone that owns a pub, of their kind of politics, of the kind of mentality that they would typically be in, given the industry that they're in, for you to then go through sort of the journey that you have, and as you said, to become so switched on to politics, and it effectively, I hope you don't mind me saying, almost radicalizing you by the sounds of it, you know what I mean? Because obviously you are. I've had a lot of conversations with you, and over the years I wouldn't say it's to an extremity at all, but it's radical in the sense that you have aligned your truth, your passion, and your experience, and you are trying to go, well, this is how I affect change, whether it is the Riverside litter picks that I've seen, sort of that you organize, you know, the direct engagement with your community, let alone sort of what you're doing with the sort of as a local business. I think that is something applaudable that is too often unseen. People think that if I can't make that impact on the larger scale, why should I bother? When actually the hearts and the minds that you will actually see, the lives that you will see changed, are in the towns and cities and communities that we live in.
You've got to do that grassroots. It's all about the grassroots, and what that means is connecting with people, getting out there, talking. Is not because we don't have the technology or the ability or the things that we need to live differently. They are political choices that are made for us. It's a political choice that we dig for oil, that we dig for lithium. They are political choices because you need big machinery. No one, you know, it's not like a lovely hemp plant that you can just stick it in the ground and off it goes. And then you've got batteries, you've got, you know, oil, hemp, ethanol, you've got it all there. But no, we are having political choices that are made for us, where you have to have big, expensive machinery in particular locations to get these things, to make these things, to have power, not just power, like, well, you know, to power things and to have power. That is the power, isn't it? To everyone tomorrow, like, you know, there's no petrol, no one's driving anywhere. That would cause absolute chaos. I'd get on my bike, I'd walk, doesn't bother me. But most other people, it would be absolute bedlam for them. Obviously, if you need it for mobility issues, that's another thing. But, you know, we can't, people are so reliant, and they know that. That's known. But we need to become self-reliant, you know, and community reliant. Absolutely. And you need to inspire your local community, get out there, talk to people. You know, when people come in here and they talk to me and they realize that who I am and that I have a business and I had a pub before, and then I just casually drop in there, you know, like, I've smoked, and they're like, oh, but, you know, it's CBD in here, isn't it? It's not that, it's not THC, or, you know, and I'm like, no, it isn't, but I have smoked THC cannabis pretty much every day for the last 20 years. And they sort of, really? You? Really? And I'm like, oh, you look all right, don't you? You're doing okay.
Yeah,
and it's
you
like,
still have your hair,
yes.
you're still standing, but how are you how
Oh,
are you
teeth.
healthy? Why haven't you gone crazy?
You're
Why haven't you
healthy.
stabbed somebody or jumped off a tall building? There's bridges in this town. Why haven't you jumped off one?
Like, I love that conversation. I love dropping that in there, and I love seeing their faces, and I love their little cogs turning in their heads and going, oh shit, I think I might have been had here. And they walk out, and, you know, you've planted that seed, and that, for me, I will never stop having those conversations, regardless of what happens with the shop. You know, I don't know, but I will never ever stop having those conversations, that conversation with people. Yeah, and I think that's really important for everyone to do. You know.
Yeah, I think I was on a podcast for the Grow Room Diaries the other night, and they sort of asked, what is the one most sort of important thing that people can do, and it is exactly that. It's engage in those types of conversations, be bold enough to go and be informed enough to then take that knowledge to people who then don't know what you know. It's pointless accruing information if you then don't have a facet to direct it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that in sharing this knowledge collectively, it will go far further than if we were to try to patent it, control it, intellectualize it, you know, copyright it. Whereas the conversations that we're having as a larger community through outreach, whether it be through direct activism, be through media work, be through owning of businesses, it's the persistent erosion of their ignorance. It's the persistent erosion of the monolith of prohibition. So every time they walk past the high street and they see a cannabis leaf on your window, and they walk past it and they went, I didn't get robbed, still got my stuff. Even if they're not consciously thinking that, somewhere in the back of their brain, in a tiny corner, in a dark room, there was a light being turned on. And exactly what you said, it's planting that seed, and with that light, it grows. And every now and then, you'll have found them. The people who kind of walk past it, you'll have almost got to know them by just them walking past. And eventually, they build up the bravery to come in one day, and then they become a regular. And you'll challenge their politics, as you said, when their worlds collide. When you open their eyes to the larger argument here about environmental impact. About sort of social politics, including like things leading up to international warfare and shit, how all of this is intrinsically linked to that tiny little plant that is giving them that little bit of a health boost. You know, it's a wonderful sort of space that you have for it. It's a shame that, as we were discussing before we started recording, the unfortunate timing of sort of the opening given COVID and everything. So that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how are you sort of finding things post-COVID? Because Amazon and other online retailers absolutely killed it. I'm aware, obviously, you have an online presence, but how are you finding sort of the physical location and the sort of footfall and people's interest?
Well, yeah, to be honest with you, yeah. So we opened up 3 days, but we opened up 3 days before the first lockdown, back in last March, which, like, it was a shitter because I was all excited about opening my hemp shop and cafe, and it's a really small space, and I share it with a zero waste shop, plastic free shop as well, refill shop. So it's, but beforehand that would have been fine. It's a cozy town, lots of people know each other, it's a tight-knit community, people wouldn't have mind coming into the shop together. I was planning on having events here with like just small, like 10-15 people or something, but just gathered in here and chatting and I got the license, so people could drink on site as well as take away. So I really envisaged that kind of bustling event thing going on. And now, obviously, I know that we are now without restrictions, but people obviously are not just snapping out of it like that. And it still wouldn't be, I don't know. Because I share the shop as well, I have to be respectful of the other shop owners' wishes, whether to use the toilet, the customers to use the toilets, all the things like that. So yeah, although we did okay, like it's been great. Business has been, really good, to be honest with you, because we were one of the only shops that people could come to in the town, apart from Sainsbury's, the supermarkets. So people could come in, they could have a chat, and it was nice for people. They did do that, and they enjoyed doing that. But now things have opened up again with, last year, July and August, they're always the quietest of months in retail because people are going away. That's still true. But I have noticed, in the last few months that it's got a bit quieter, to be honest. Like, as we've moved out of restrictions for us, as people are allowed to go further afield, we're seeing it get a little bit quieter. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm ever going to be able to turn it into that space, or quick enough for me, because I am quite impatient, but it's never going to be that space where people are just relaxing, hanging out, maybe 2 or 3, 4 people in here at the same time. It's really changed it, it is unfortunate. But other than that, it's a good location, and it was a good idea to share it with a zero waste shop, because the two things go hand in hand, really. I get to talk to people that are interested in the environment, about hemp and its environment benefits. So yeah, it's good.
Where actually is it for people that are listening?
So I'm based in Chesham. I'm in the town of Chesham in Buckinghamshire, on the high street.
Nice.
Easily to find, nice, close to the car park, toilets. Got a lovely view of the toilets. No, well, I do, but you can't see bins. But I miss having a team as well. Like when I had the pub, obviously I had my staff, and there was a few of us, and I don't have that here because it's such a tiny shop. I can manage it by myself, but I'm really missing like bouncing off of other people, and I just sit here by myself all day, and I'm terrible company for myself because I'm not very, if I don't have anyone to, like responsibility, I'm much better when I've got responsibility to other people.
Yeah. If
someone else is relying on me to like do their rota, to order the beer, and like, do all these things as part of a team, that's much more motivating for me. And that's just something that I've had to learn through this.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So
I just have to come back with a bigger shop, you know.
Or I mean, like what I found is opening up around here, especially, is little carts, like the old school American ice cream carts, you know, the big wheels and whatever, and they have the little parasol umbrella, and they have a little bike on the front or whatever, but they're an extension of a shop. So say if it was a coffee shop or whatever, and then you know you've got varying locations and on different days and whatnot, and spreading. I don't know if one of your mates was into something like that or looking for a bit of work or whatever. Get them out on the bike. Fuck it, why not?
To be honest, I'd rather get out there cycling than sitting in the shop.
There you go.
Well, I mean, markets and stalls and outdoor sort of retail is becoming a larger thing. I know that a lot of the places that were struggling, York and Durham, for example, were the two hardest hit cities for shop closures during the 2 lockdowns. So a lot of what they're doing on Silver Street, one of the main high streets in Durham, is they're allowing conversion of the upper stores, what would have been the upper storage or the upper floors, into flats to cheapen the retail of the units, to try and bring in some more local retail opportunities, to get rid of just the standardized franchise of crap that people can buy and are buying en masse cheaper from Amazon. So it's about creating bespoke retail to what people want. And I see your argument of limitation of your space. Wasn't there a thing of the licensing was modified to mean that your license extended to the pavement outside of the property? Would that mean that you could create a seated area based on the premise of it for serving alcohol, but also serve coffee there?
Yeah, it's all there, but the main thing that's missing for me is people to work with, people to vibe with. It's what can I say? I'm a social creature, and it's just me in my shop, and making my little videos, making my little reels, amusing myself, not really motivating myself very well, and I don't know. I need to find my swing again.
Need to keep an eye out for another one of those little red bits of string.
Indeed. I might have one, but I'll not let on to that yet.
Good. You got to keep some things close to your chest, because otherwise the universe can go, you're so confident and cocky in it, I'm going to have that back. Yeah.
You're right.
Too many times myself. This is I suppose you've mentioned the H word several times here, so I suppose there's a conversation that I suppose needs to kind of be had. Is that anybody that has followed my work, especially in recent years, has known that I've sort of rallied against the term of hemp. Not necessarily gone to war with it per se, but I just have an issue with the way it's been used in common parlance and the way that it's been adopted into the culture, and it's been sanitized and kind of gone through a nice marketing and advertising campaign to come out the other side. So when you walk down the shampoo aisle or even some like toothpaste aisles or whatever, there's cannabis leaves will greet you. Yet on the other side of this is still the entirety of the war on drugs, still the raids, still people going to prison, still people dying because of lack of sort of access. So my issue is then with the disingenuous nature of the industry. Obviously, I'm not saying that you are in the slightest. That's not a parallel that I'm drawing here. What I wanted was your opinion on how you reform the language, because I think that's something that you do with your usage of the word hemp. You're not painting it as this is hemp, not that stuff. I immediately break it down for people as soon as we start interacting in conversation and we start talking about hemp, and sometimes they will say, oh, well, like hemp is the good one or something, or something like that. Something will lead into it quite nicely normally, and it's dead simple actually how you get over this, and that is the etymology of the word, so the origins of the words, and that is simply cannabis is Latin and from the Roman times, and then the Romans were overthrown by the Germanics, the medieval, like old school Germanics people, and in their language, in the Proto-Germanic language, C's became H's and B's became P's, so cannabis became hanapis, and then the Germans came over to England
or Old England as it was, back then. And then in Old English, Hanapis became Hanep, Hanep became hemp, and there you have it. They're one and the same thing. So as you say that to people, and they're like, oh, you've got nowhere to go on that. It's black and white, which people like. They can relate to that. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that subject. And that's that's what I say. That's the truth. Well, I guess with etymology, it's all there's an air of interpretation to it. It's, take it as you will. It's history, thousands of years old words and history that we are looking back to. But for me, and the research that I've done, what I've looked into it, that makes sense. And it just, smashes that argument of, oh, hemp's the good one and cannabis is the bad one.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the observation there, I suppose, is the language is alive. It is an ever-evolving, ever-changing, ever-fluctuating thing. So the definitions and distinction and meaning that is ascribed to certain words or certain phrases or what do you call them? Idioms, maxims, whichever one I'm trying to pull
words.
Pull out my ass there. Words in a sequence.
Words.
Words. That was a brilliant heckle. So this is ever evolving and ever fluctuating. So this is what I'm rebelling against is the kind of war, the to and fro, the tug of war over the term of sort of hemp. In that when described that way, it's more of a Northern European descriptor in our common parlance to mean just cannabis. But then because of the grey area created by licensing and the war on drugs and whatever else, hemp has come to be known as low THC cannabis. There's then even the sort of the approved hemp strains, as it were, which are then all classified by their limited THC cap, not any other, what is the word I'm looking for, sort of structural part of the plant. It's not that the genome or whatever, the taxonology is the word I was looking for, of the plant is the same. Yeah, I mean, it is only the expression of this one cannabinoid that is different. It's been a long day. Sorry,
it's a political choice. Again, it's a political choice of language. We talk about political choices. This is political choice of language, and the powers that be have chosen to use the word hemp. Maybe it's ignorance. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it is just their ignorance. But
it's a bit of both, to be honest. I think. Like the way I see the government or the current government's operation is akin to how Dominic Cummings described it. Basically, they don't have a fucking clue. They're all in it for themselves and their mates, and that's exactly how I expect. Not how I expect. That's what I have come to expect from the government in terms of operation. I just said that. Fucking hell. It's not just you that's having a mare. It's just it's not just you having a mare today. A point I'm making is they've obviously identified that in order for us to make any sort of financial gain from this, the only way for us to do it is to coin a new safe term and then just apply stuff any application, industrial application or medical application under those terms, and keep it away from this spooky term named cannabis. As Mike Barnes said, if it was named anything else cannabis, it would be legal by now. That kind of way.
Yeah.
Another great word play that you can say to people is about the word canvas, coming from cannabis as well, because before we chop down trees to make paper, we would always make it out of cannabis, which probably we'd call that kind of cannabis that would make it out of hemp these days, but it is still cannabis. I think with the words, it's just they've done such a good job of poisoning people against it. And what I was going to say is now the word cannabis is being specifically reserved for medical, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Well, it's only acceptable when it's medical use cannabis. Otherwise, you have to use the hemp.
Or marijuana. Marijuana is the other term, especially just to
Never the marijuana.
Yeah,
never.
exactly.
We don't like that.
Yeah, of course not. Of course,
No.
I don't like it at all. But I mean, that's the demonized, stigmatized side of stuff. Go on, Simpa.
What they're doing is weaponizing cognitive dissonance and biases within the human brain and consciousness. So they're using, if you look at the average media source, when they really want to vilify the individual, it's marijuana. It's a dirty, dangerous, foreign thing almost. They have marijuana. What's that? Is that super, super strong stuff?
That's that skunk stuff.
Yeah, or they're going to go for the skunk argument, right? Yeah. Then you've got the accepted, safe, or we can give this to children. Look at how safe it is. Medical cannabis. Do you know what I mean? That's the new hemp, as it were, in terms of what we've just discussed in the to and fro for an accurate definition and a true understanding of the nomenclature and terminology around cannabis. Because without it, you see it all the time. People going, I need some medical grade this, I need medical this, or I need access to medical cannabis. And then people are sort of, we can give you access to FECO, distillates, extracts, blah, 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 blah. And no, I need the medical stuff. And so then when you explain all the difference between it is cost, obviously, but it's good manufacturing practices. It's going to be irradiated. It's going to be grown under certain conditions, which actually increase, not decrease, the likelihood of pests, mold, and various other invasive actions that could damage the crop. Do you know what I mean? And when people sort of can grasp that, they understand it. And effectively, we discussed this the other day, of it being a racketeering scam, is they've kind of gone, all right, cannabis has got all these uses, and they're like, shit, right, all right, cannabis comes from Latin, dead language, can't modify that, we've lost that. That is solidified cannabis sativa L in the botanical literature for the past two and a half centuries. So that, yeah, as you say, they've lost that. Hemp, again, is still very loose because it's not then truly defined. So if they can then define it within legislation, it then becomes true within sort of the vocabulary, because then when we reference it, we reference the legislation. And that's more of a legalese thing, and that's exactly what they've done with medical cannabis. Is when we say medical cannabis, it refers to the legislation.
Was it referred to as hemp during Henry VIII's time? With the hemp, was that hemp tax?
It will have been hemp, because cannabis then is a common
so it's
terminology.
the old English.
It wasn't until the mid 17th century. It was Carl L. Lingus. I think it's not Lingus, Linnaeus.
Pardon?
Linnaeus. I'm getting there.
Johnny Lingus.
I'm trying to read it in my head and don't put words that are going to give me that kind of image.
Aer Lingus, I heard.
Linus, I think it is. I think it's Linus. It's one of the many last names I've just said there. Anyway, that's where the L comes from. Anyway, for the and obviously there's a war over the different types and subcategorizations. Now we accept that it's basically hemp, indica, and ruderalis. And so there is an argument to be made of the evolution of cannabis going from indica through ruderalis to sativa. They are trying to then deal with this by sort of isolating the genetics of it and being able to backdate cannabis to show its roots. This is very contentious sort of science that they're pulling out with it, and a lot of people are very hesitant to support it because it feels very corporatized. It's going to fit a nice narrative of kind of who would have first dibs, as it were. But yeah, the history seems to show the indica is the older plant, which indica is of India. So it came from the sort of Asian plateau to the Himalayas sort of region, and then as it changed through human intervention, as we've taken it from that altitude, if then the cannabinoids, the terpenes, and everything else are a response to defense at altitude and climate, if we've changed the climate of the plant over time, its evolution would change. And because there were so many different iterations of the subspecies created by individual farms, individual holdings, individual families, the interbreeding of this, because pollinate chucks into the area, goes quite a lot further than you would think. Hence the arguments in Mendocino County at the minute between the hemp industry and the cannabis industry. This then created that interbreeding, then human intervention. We took it to different parts of the world, so that then, yeah, the cannabis in the UK that will have been grown will have been hemp, but was cannabis. This is the argument of where we're falling, and if we don't get a hold of this language now, we can risk losing that history. They can rewrite it, and this is our oldest companion species. We've been around cannabis for tens of, if not hundreds of thousands of years. So to try to steal it from us at the 11th hour, I think it's a bit of a dick move on their part.
Straight up.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, straight up dick move. Don't move. We see you. We see what you're doing.
It is.
We don't like it.
We know it's greed because they're missing some of the most important aspects of the plant. If you're then cultivating these hundreds of tons of cannabis and selling it onto this open market, why are you then producing thousands of tons, millions of tons of plastic waste when you're then mulching the fucking fibrous material? Why are you still poisoning the grounds with the fucking nutrients that you're putting in there rather than remediating the soils and building them back to living? Why are you not applying Korean farming techniques? Why are you not? Why is everything about the system that you've created
because it's
hassle?
Because it's fucking hassle, mate, and they're lazy bastards, quite clearly. Do you know what I mean? Least amount of effort, most amount of profit. Duh. Fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean?
That was the pitch for capitalism when they walked into the global economic forums decades ago. They were right, we've got this neoliberalistic capitalism pitch coming up. Right, what is it? We're going to do fuck all and we're going to make all this money.
I just yeah.
We'll have that.
Do you know what? I have this like image of, people of the same ilk as Dominic Cummings, stone bald, white male, and you could just slap their heads constantly and make the applause sound, that kind of way. That's exactly. You can hear that. Oh yeah, fuck yeah, capitalism.
Yeah.
All right, that was disgusting, but intentional.
Wonderful imagery.
There you go. No, but I mean, there's something funny about that sort of the Eggmen. The Eggmen. At the moment, they're flying penises into spaces, or you know what I mean, the edge of space. Like that's a fucking thing. That kind of way.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, that is something as an environmentalist that we definitely need to discuss. Richard Branson, fucking Elon Musk, and fucking Jeff Bezos having a dick swinging contest.
Yeah, literally.
Who can fuck the sky?
Flying phalluses into the sky.
Literally, there is no other. The design of the Amazon fucking rocket.
It even had the curve on the top.
Everything. They sat and they worked that shit out. They went, here. They're just trolling. They are trolling. 100%. That level of affluence and wealth. Did you see that on the Bezos flight? The guy that paid for the other fucking seat, it was like 24 million, something like that.
$28 million.
28 million, right? And they went, I've got a scheduling conflict. What is it? He's going for dinner with his wife, and she's like, nah, you do this, I'm going to divorce you. And he's like, I can lose 28 million. What the fuck is it? What do you have on your schedule that once in a lifetime opportunity that you invest more than most people will ever see in their lifetime, cumulative across their family, for 10 minutes in fucking space, and you go, I don't have 10 minutes, but you don't have 10 minutes to float around.
What's more worrying is you have that amount of money to spend, but you don't have the fucking genitalia to come out and go, actually, I'm shitting a break, I'm not going to go. Just fucking say it. I mean, you've got $28 million, like, do you know, that kind of way. I'm not even going to assume that you're male or female.
I've got what it is, right? He placed a bet on the rocket blowing up or not blowing up, and then he was just leveraging.
It was.
I think it was super nice.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, because we're just going to go off.
I was just going to say, I think it was super nice of Jeff Bezos to hand out that thanks to the customers and staff, for putting him up there. I mean, that is the ultimate, is it not? I mean, I don't know, if I don't buy from Amazon, and I've certainly never worked for them, but if I had, I'd have been like, oh yeah, that's my money that you've just blasted up.
That's it. So
exactly, that is the first time a person of that level of affluence is unintentionally publicly stated that I am entirely here because I have exploited you. I can do this because you let me fuck you over. The world comes to an end. What do you fuckers want? You want fancy trinkets and fucking fairy lights to make your house nicer. Keep buying them. We've got an army of children in China making them for you. We got all the plastic in the fucking world.
Buy it, babe. Buy it up. Buy it all up, yeah.
Jeez, yeah. Have you got enough live, laugh, love signs on your wall? Do you want 2 more? Well, these ones are near neon. But come on, the majority of Amazon is tat. It is some of it.
It's moving into cannabis. He's moving into cannabis, though, right?
Yeah,
quite heavily. Not only they're planning to move into cannabis, they're actively planning to lobby the government. Which means if a body like Amazon starts putting pressure on the fucking government, and they can go, look at our infrastructure and the rollout. Bear in mind, Amazon were able to, they pit in New York and another state against each other in a war to reduce their tax to zero. Then once they got to zero of like what they'd have to pay in the state, they then started bidding on what they'd give them on top of that, to sweeten the fucking deal. If they're in that kind of position, imagine they go on and go, okay, we see you're trying to sort this whole weed thing out. We'll do it. But as soon as they step up to that level, you are going to end up with this weird juxtaposition of reality where the people who are now benefiting from the air quotes legal industry are going to fight against the national legal industry because it's not going to be in their interest. Because then the bigger boys, not just the Curaleafs with their like 110 fucking dispensaries across 23 states, but the major guys just come and go, we want all of them. We want it all. We'll just buy them up as unions, whatever, create whatever shell companies, create whatever obfuscated network of bullshit you need for us to own every little piece of this. And when that comes, they're going to be thrown in the same as us. So the people who are still criminalized and live outside of the legalized models of the world, they're going to be thrown into the same, or they'll be in the same boat as the people who've been profiteering, who have been exploiting them since legalization. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's perhaps an inevitability. I mean, you've got obviously Amazon, as you said, moving into the cannabis industry. Virgin are obviously linked heavily to the cannabis industry. I wonder, does Elon Musk have ties in any of his investments in the cannabis industry? And if he doesn't, well, the other two fucking do. So he probably will soon enough as well. So, I mean, here's the thing though. I mean, there really has to be a tipping point in terms of how heavily this is going to impact our local communities and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be a point where local industry can't exist in small communities, and if it gets to that point, two things are going to happen. Either people are going to be driven towards the city and we're going to end up in some sort of fucking mad dystopian fucking, I don't know, Blade Runner-esque situation, or what we're going to see a fight back. We're going to see people on the fucking their local streets, you know, not necessarily in protest, but in terms of getting communities together, bypassing politics, bypassing fucking this labor and conservatism shite, and actually making stuff fucking happen. Community gardening, that kind of stuff, right? But if that was to actually be pushed back into a loyalty based spending of currency, you see, then you can actually drive. You could from a communal sense, you can drive those types of businesses away from smaller communities. It's hard. It's fucking really hard, especially because they are convenient. Do you know that kind of way? But it's about making people give a shit about that level of convenience. This is what you're paying for. The destitution of your fucking community is representative all around you in capitalist fucking franchises and brands. You need to invest in your fucking community. You need to be on the streets. You need to be doing all of these things. And I see Simpa's trying to get in there, and I'm trying to find more stuff to say so he can just stay hanging. But no, I've run out of steam, sir. So off you go. Off you pop.
That was wonderful. That's the shit right there, because you hit the fucking nail on the head. And what image came to my mind there was the campaigns that are going on around York at the minute, because if they're trying to build the warehouses on the outskirts, which is then obviously going to affect the inner economy, they've done incredibly well about keeping the majority of franchises away and being able to protect through tax and through other means to be able to facilitate and offset the unfair competition that is created by large business and their delivery systems. But one thing that we're going to see as a kind of a consequence of Brexit, I guess, is going to be the slowdown of international goods. So if then the majority of the products that are sold on these kind of websites are going to be from international markets, and because of Brexit, because of various treaty fall downs, because of backlogs, because we are missing tens of thousands of lorry drivers, because we're having issues around COVID, etc., there's going to be a point. I mean, they're already talking about sort of food shortages, etc. So I think we're going to hit to a point where convenience will stall long enough that people will look elsewhere, and I'm hoping enough people will be outraged, and for the first time they will drive to their city centres. Look, Durham, I don't know if there's quite a few of the cities have done it as well, have now suspended parking fees after a certain time as a way to try and stimulate people into the sort of local area. little sort of steps like that can incentivize people back. And all we need is enough people to be there and to be outraged. As you said, people that'll like stand there and go, when I was a burn, this was all whatever, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And if then enough people recognize that and enough people are brave enough to step forward with it, then yeah, but it doesn't need the grand gesture. Ultimately, we do have millions of people protesting literally in the capital, and that most weekends as it's going on, but we don't see it. So we're not really aware of it. So exactly that, the true activism, I suppose the most effective activism currently is change your life. That is the most direct thing that you can do. I think it was Aldous Huxley that said that he found himself at a point of embarrassment, that actually after all of his years of intellectual pursuit and of knowledge, that the only thing that he could be sure of is that he can improve himself. I think that's a very true point, in that that's all we have. And then from that, you act as a kind of a lighthouse, as a beacon to others. You see it all the time when I do a cannabis event. If I start picking up litter, all of a sudden 3 or 4 people pick up litter. Do you know what I mean? It's a monkey see, monkey do. And it is,
in a positive sense, not in a negative sense.
Yeah, exactly. I did not mean that derogatively to anybody that is then seeing what I'm doing. But I mean, it's the mechanism, the mirror neuron in the brain, that something in our neurology lights up when we see another human being do the same task. That's how babies learn. It's a method by which we become who we are. And that stays through our life. So if we then can become consciously aware of that, we can utilize it for the better good, because then the people that we hang around with, the stimuli that we take in, the so-called social media diet, or the media diet in general, films, TV, music, etc., magazines, books, whatever else, that helps inform who we are. That helps modify our behaviors. I mean, look at what we know through the Great Hack and the Social Dilemma about what they're doing with weaponizing technologies against us by using these mechanisms. So the more conscious we can become aware of them, the more effective we can become in our local communities, ultimately. In my humble opinion.
Yeah, and you've got to look. I mean, it is balance in the end of the day, right? People need fucking to be nourished in an entertaining sense. So in that kind of way, I love music, absolutely adore it. Do you know what I mean? I'd be lost without it. But obviously, I've identified, say, my social media use is just, I've just fallen out of love with it completely. It's just an absolute waste of time. Why do that when I could be, doing something that will actually help me in my fucking life, whether it is boring or it isn't? Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's like something like preparing I pre-prepare my breakfasts, every now and again, just in case because it sounds really boring, but I'll tell you what, for the 15 fucking minutes every morning that it saves me, I'm doing other things. I'm doing other things that I'm actually fucking interested in. I've used these systems to be more efficient in that regard. I've gotten all that shit out of the way. So do you know that kind of way? At the same time, I'm still occasionally communicating with people on social media. I'm still occasionally watching a really nonsensical TV show, put your brain on the couch kind of stuff, action or whatever, loud explosions, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's balance. But in this world of immediacy, we forget that we need to fucking switch off from that. You need to fucking actually, I do need to do some of this stuff to make my life a bit more fucking easier. And then that, you see, that if we get people back to that point, we can restore a sort of an idea of respect in terms of communication, but on a basic level between me and you, me and anybody, that kind of way. And what I mean by that is, if you're a bit more patient with yourself in that regard, because you're more balanced. Do you see what I'm saying? That can actually that can be like projected outwards to your local community. So you're not annoyed that somebody in the queue in front of you in Tesco's or whatever, or the local store that you're now loyal to. You're not blowing your stack there. Maybe you're stopping to smell the fucking flowers. That kind of way. These small little things add up. I feel like I'm talking. It brings us
back to
Thank you. Come in.
I was saying it reminds me of what I started. You're doing that thing again, aren't you? You're just rambling on.
Pretty much.
It just reminded me of how we started, and just saying how I was saying, like when I moan or when I'm in a bad mood, I get on my nerves. So, you know, like when I see litter in the street and the face masks, that's really what like got me going with the litter picking, was when last year we started to see this influx of masks and gloves all over the fucking street. And I was like, I was moaning. I was like, go and pick them up, to myself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
go and pick them up. And so I did. And then other people started joining in, and we were having litter picks, and now people ask me when the next one's going to be because they really liked it, and I'm like, oh, I don't know. But you know, but we need people to step up and start taking the mantle, because it's really like tiring to keep leading. And that's what I think about politics as well. That's why we end up with these shitty leaders, is because it's exhausting to do a really good job of leadership, you know, not just saying the words, but living what you're saying as well, you know. Yeah, that's why, you know, not just saying the right thing, but doing the right thing. It is tiring, and, you know, but that is what we should try and do. And as a natural leadership is those qualities, because then, as you said, people do what they see others doing. And that's why I think we have a problem in society at the moment, because look at the people at the top and what they're doing. They're such shit examples of human beings. It's no wonder that that's filtering down into society, and people are just like, of course I can do what the fuck I want. Look at Boris. He does what the fuck he wants. He doesn't give a shit. He doesn't get in trouble for it. There are no consequences to my shit behavior. Fuck it.
There is absolutely
You know?
no accountability at all.
Yeah, it's an interesting
So, and that's filtering down, and that's why we need like strong people to step up and be good leaders, but also help each other. We need to build that community, because it's tiring taking the mantle all the time. So we need to be able to, you know, hand it over to each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem is that we don't have leaders. We have managers. They're of the managerial class. You know what I mean? So because of that, it's a different relationship. True leaders don't create followers. They create other leaders. The point of this is not to create cults. It's not to create, you know, personality-driven movements. It's to remove ourselves from the ad hominem attacks of modern politics, the mudslinging of modern politics, to be able to go back to debating and discussing ideas and concepts. And everybody's voice is valid in some way. And actually, the more voices, when done in a constructive way, the greater the data. And from that data, we extrapolate what society needs, what it wants, and how to actually make things that are representative of the collective whole, which is something that we just don't do. So the managerial class that we have come from Eton, they come from Oxford, you know, they come from Cambridge, they come from these sort of high-end establishments where the education they receive is for a country they don't end up leading. The millions of people who make up this place, the proletariat in the Marxist sort of terminology, we are the ones who make this country. We are tens of millions strong, yet our needs are not served. That is the needs of the few, and they get to sit there with this many people voted and this percentage of people voted. But then when you start to look at the numbers, the proportions of people who are just not participating is astronomical. The tiny efforts of them, we don't need a new cultist party, like I was saying, for everyone to sign up to and to follow. We can cripple the system through independent candidacy. If we just screw the idea of splitting the left vote or splitting this vote, just deny the neoliberalistic vote. Do not vote within the left-right spectrum. Create independent politics, create coalitions, create collective councils, create groups of ideas,
People's assembly.
not ideologies. Exactly. And when the people come together and their voices are heard, then it is the best opportunity we have for our needs to be met. The big parties love to ring it out of going, if you vote for this, it'll destroy this, we won't be able to this. But actually, if we take over local, well, then we get that national voice, because they can't implement shit if we don't let it happen. And by ending this two-party system that we've got, the tens of, like I say, literally tens of millions of people who are disenfranchised in this country will have an opportunity to find kinship, find community, find solidarity within their peers. And I think that alone is probably one of the, hopefully if we survive whatever fucking Armageddon humanity is currently going, I don't mean COVID, I just mean in the collection of the world and the direction we're heading in, will be one of the key points in the history textbooks, is that we switch. Oh,
you're feeling that too?
It's
without doubt. We're fucking. What was I watching? I watched The Watchmen over the weekend. Was it weekend? What day is today? Fucking hell. Yeah, I watched The Watchmen recently, and it's like it's got that doomsday clock or whatever, we're still there, and it's a climate one, 100%. This whole 2050 thing that they were batting on about, when I think just as we started this about 40 episodes ago, and myself and Simpa just lost the fucking plot. I was like, are you fucking for real? We could sort this shit out in fucking 5 years. We can actually do this. We could probably do it quicker than that if we actually got off our collective holes and you know, and stopped having fucking meetings about meetings. You know, that kind of way. It's the truth, though. I mean, and
you're
then
so right.
And then they've come out recently. There was an article yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I'm all over the place. But it was on recently, and it was like, oh yeah, 2050 is too late. That was 2 fucking years ago or whatever. Do you know that kind of way? It's like, you're only talking about this now? Of course it's fucking too late. What do you I don't get. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say.
We live in such a fucked up time, right? So there's been mass flooding in China, in New York, in Germany, in London, in Belgium. Dubai are making rain. Is there a correlation here? You know, we can talk about now weather seeding, because it's gone from being that tinfoil conspiracy theory to, oh, by the way, there are countries in the world that were just making it rain. So previously, when all of these famines, or literally that is the image. Yeah, they are literally making it fucking rain, because it shows that money buys everything, but it shows how disconnected we are. If we're generating rain, the natural ecocycle, the whole geosphere was not going to generate itself. That creates excess that has to go somewhere. All water is connected to the water table. There will be an increase somewhere. It just shows that if these
people need to take some psychedelics. They need to take some psychedelics, even if it's just some THC, whatever. I don't care. Some form of psychedelic, and they need to see what you see when you've seen how everything is connected. And if you can't see that those things are connected, then just stop being a fucking oxygen thief, because you're a really big problem, and I'm fucking sick of it. Just get off. Yeah. Get off, blast yourself into space. Don't bother coming fucking back, because nobody fucking wants you. Fuck off into space, and we will sort this problem out so much quicker and better than this shit that we've got hanging over us in governments and corporations and billionaires, because I am fucking sick of it. I've got to say.
Echoed, 100%. Go ahead.
Yeah. Interesting juxtaposition for you here. So, Mr. I want to fuck this guy with the cowboy hat, Jeff Bezos, his ex-wife, who took basically half his cash, but he remade that in the first half of lockdown alone. He's now worth quite a considerable amount more than before she divorced him. Last year alone, I think in 1 month, she gave away $4 billion to 116 charities, emergency relief funds, environmental stuff, and food banks. So there's an interesting juxtaposition between the cost of building that giant mechanical penis and fueling it to go fuck the sky versus his ex-wife and leaving him to go and invest in that money. I'm not going to draw too much of a parallel here, but do we think there's maybe a correlation between how happy his wife appears and everything that she's doing in the life she's now living, and Jeff Bezos creating a surrogate phallus to go and fuck the sky? Do we think there is some sort of link here of inferiority and security?
Well, in terms of conversation,
I think if someone could just...
Sorry, go ahead.
If someone could just stand up to Jeff Bezos and all these other people, billionaires, and say, you're paying your goddamn taxes, then maybe his wife wouldn't have to do charity handouts to whoever she wants to give the money to, because they'd be paying their fucking taxes, and a responsible government would be giving that money to these things themselves. Yeah. And we don't need to do charity and taxes. No, pick one, because I can't do both. I'm not doing both.
Look, Ireland are old.
And clearly neither of the billionaires. They're not doing both. They're doing charity, because then they can make money on that as well. And it's just all of fucking load of bullshit. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's all
charity. Sweet charity.
You're absolutely
part of the con, yeah.
You're absolutely spot on. Ireland are a prime example of this. embarrassingly so. So I mean, Apple owed Ireland about 14 billion in tax, because basically they were they were just allowed to do whatever the fuck they wanted, and the court, I think, ruled in Ireland's favour, and they were like, yeah, it's there, no bother, you can have 14 billion in tax. And then Ireland were like, actually, it's not, it's all right, there's no hassle, you're grand, you're grand. And I swear to God, it was like that. It was literally like, oh, sure, look, we can't be doing that. Honest to fuck. And I was looking at your man and I was going, this is what I'm talking about. It's pure laziness. For them to accept that money, then they have to use it, and they have to break it up into these things and fucking make sure it's use the X, Y, and Z, and it's hassle. It's fucking hassle. So I'm grand. I'm making my money. I'm making the money on the sly, lads. Do you know that kind of way?
Well, that's the conversation that will have happened. They can't slide that under the mattress. That goes into the public books, and then they'd have to scam it off by going, all right, we'll set up this charity commission and appoint 4 of our mates, and you'll get paid this, and then you give me a backhand of this.
Yeah,
and set up all of that. So yeah, and not only that, it's modern politics in the West are based on disaster capitalism. Always be tipping over the edge. The NHS is always in crisis. The housing bubble is always about to burst. The stock market's always about to fail. Do you know what I mean? It's always about keeping that fear, keeping them spending and the consumption going.
Where has this anxiety come from, people?
Yeah, exactly. Why is everybody suddenly chronically depressed and so anxious that no one can sleep? You know, I read a thing the other day. I'm not going to try and quote the statistics because I only scanned the article, about saying that erectile dysfunction is hitting younger and younger men every fucking year. And they're talking about sort of performance anxiety, but then they were just talking about economic anxiety. They actually brought this up as a generalized thing of going that if you are seriously worried for your job security, home security, the ability to then perform in such a scenario, your brain will then naturally flood with this. Have you paid the gas bill? Can you afford the internet next week? Your phone's going to get cut off. All of that kind of noise and clatter and shit. Obviously, then in conjunction with shit diets and excessive amounts of drug consumption, especially the culture that's emerging of people taking
lack of exercise,
cocaine and Viagra is an interesting combination that a lot of people are experimenting with, which is very fucking dangerous for the heart. And that's a conversation for a different time. We've actually got somebody from the sex worker industry coming on pretty soon, so we'll discuss that and similar topics soon.
I just had this image of what was that Jason Statham film? Crank. It was basically that. Yeah, fucking like, oh my God, can you imagine living like that? More often, I just look, going back to the whole like governmental incompetence and being educated.
Was it erectile dysfunction made you think of the government?
It certainly does. Imagine spending all of that.
Classic.
Imagine spending all of that money, being privately educated at the best school in the world or whatever, and still being a fucking idiot. Imagine that. That's got to hurt down in the intestine somewhere, that kind of way.
I suppose they're not the same as us. Though no one will give you an education enough to overthrow them. They are not our leaders. As I said, they're managers. They're the manager class. They're still the owner class above them. And even then, the Bezos, the fucking Bransons, etc. of the world, they're the ones who are allowed to know. They're the ones who are allowed to see. They're the authorized motherfuckers. There are shadow masters far beyond this at all scales. Do you know what I mean? And so they're educated enough to do their role. They're taught how to politic, how to do rhetoric, things like this. They're taught how to obfuscate an interview, sit in a room, be asked a question 47 times and never give a response to it. How to hide your mistress and your mistress's mistress, and how to hide the other 14 kids you've got. All of that's what they're basically taught, is that structure, and to never.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, and to never betray your own.
That's what I was gonna say. They've got the skills. They've got the skills that they need to do the job that they've got to do.
Yeah, and then it comes back to something we bring up often on this, is the Upton Sinclair quote of you cannot expect a man to comprehend something when his salary is based on him not comprehending it. So again, his sister even came out when he was announced to be prime minister. There was a big thing, I think it was in Ian Hislop's rag. What is it? Fucking
Private Eye.
Private Eye. And she was talking about before every single interview, he messes his hair up. Every time he goes out in public, it is part of the facade, the waffling and that is all part of.
Yeah, but he is still an idiot, though, man.
Well, yeah, I do not doubt that, but he's a very fucking useful idiot.
Yeah. He's efficient in what he's been trained to do, without a fucking doubt. But I mean,
the reason he's still in play at the minute, the reason they haven't called anything, even when they've had comfortable fucking margins for another Conservative majority, is that he is doing exactly what the upper class want, the ruling fucking elite want, because they're making bank. 95% of the PPI contracts were non-contested, given to fucking mates. PPE. But you know what I'm saying.
That's it. What's it? Gladstone Brooks getting a fucking shout out here. Gladstone Brooks. Sorry. So have you got the PPI? I'm telling you, that's the Matrix deja vu moment where
we're gonna have
signal.
PPI in the future. I'm telling you.
PPI.
PPI. That's what it's going to be. If you've been affected by overpriced and inefficient masks.
Oh, God. Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Can you imagine? But
we're a litigation culture, man. We're America's little fucking brother, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, 100%.
We adopted this idea of I'd rather sue myself to success and then live a lifestyle that's lovely on Instagram and buy this followers in this lifestyle and pretend this facade, than put some fucking work in, create an environment I want to actually fucking live in, and then just live in it. That's ultimately what I'm doing. I'm not trying to get the fuck out of this place. I'm trying to figure out how to change the regulation on it so these motherfuckers have a chance to live, so I can figure out what to do with life. That's what most people in this are doing. We kind of went, problem, I'll put some time in. And we don't know what the fuck we want out of this at the end of it. Whereas the oppressors, they know exactly what they want. So what's coming next is part of the conversation, a question that I wanted to ask you, is about regulation. You're rather intelligent and quite informed on this. I'm in a very unfortunate position if there is a probable move of legalization coming in the UK within, in my estimation, the next 12 to 18 months. I think that I'm probably going to be on the side of having to fight against this, because I think the nature of the regulations and the monopolistic intentions of it to create a cartel of individuals to control it will be far more of a detriment than the idea of them going, oh, well, you won't get stopped on the street for it. You know what I mean? I think that is coming very quick as people are starting to prove cases in the courtroom, as people like Outlaw and that are starting to have success, as solicitor firms are starting to go, actually, there's something in this. The more that kind of snowball builds, I think the government are more informed than they appear. Incompetency, as I said, is the guise they wear. So behind the scenes, a lot of this research and investment, look at the TIGGR thing with new technologies, etc. They're finding ways to move this conversation forward, and they'll come with the, hey, it's hemp and it's medical cannabis, but that cannabis stuff, that skunk stuff, still illegal, we'll still have you. And enough people within the industry and enough people within the community will go, I'm medical, or I sell hemp, and they're going to go for it. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on sort of where you think regulation is going and kind of where you think you would stand with it.
Well, to be honest with you, it's another... it's not so. I like regulation, you know. I like rules, I like boundaries, you know. As human beings, we do, and I'm not even necessarily like saying ones that other people have set up for me, but you know, I have a seat at the table, and you know, I like to form policy. I like to create responsible ways to do things and encourage others to do that. So for me, I mean, when I was working for British Cannabis, well, it's quite funny actually, because I was always very loudly outspoken on social media against the Cannabis Trades Association. Anyway, so I applied for a job with British Cannabis, or Cannabidol as that brand of it was known. And little did I know that the CEO of British Cannabis was actually also the one of the directors of the CTA. So in my interview, I pretty much just slagged the CTA off, and it turns out that we were the founding member of it. So I was like, well, you know, that's a bit awkward, but I'm sure we can get past it. And I got the job because it was a sales job, and they'd never met, even the sales manager himself, he didn't know anything about CBD cannabis. They'd never interviewed anyone that knew anything about it. So I got the job. I mean, I didn't last very long, but so the current regulation is actually the novel foods is another string of why I don't want to do the shop anymore, because for the last 4 or 5 years, the CBD industry has been operating within a legal grey area, relying on people that haven't minded operating within a legally grey area. And now that they've decided, yes, that is a good industry, and they haven't regulated, they've done lazy. We're going back to this laziness again. All we're going to do is slap £500,000 on people and call that regulation. Are you fucking high? You're not high enough. That's bullshit. So now all these lovely little artisan creators that I've met over the last 4 or 5 years that I'm stocking their products, well, I can't anymore because they can't afford it. You know, these products are fantastic, really helping people. Little Rick's soft drinks, one of them, you know, it's laziness, it's lazy regulating, it's not inviting, it's not democratic, it's not looking around, you know, within our country or looking, who are the experts here? Have we got medicinal cannabis experts? Who are the doctors? No one, I don't know, maybe some people are being invited to these things. It's obviously just not me. Why would it be me? I'm just a publican. But you know, maybe they are inviting people and they're just not being listened to. I don't know, but it's just not, it's just bullshit, basically. It's more of the same bullshit, lazy regulation. And this has happened across other industries as well, like the craft beer industry. They had a tax put on of their barrelage. If they brewed over a certain number of barrels, they were increment to this tax. And of course, this number sat just on like the crux that helped the big boys out, but absolutely shafted the small brewers. So it's something that we're seeing across industries. And this is what I say to people as well. I think this has happened to every industry that has gone before CBD. You know, it's been formed, it's been evaluated, and then they've gone, yes, thank you very much, we'll have that. And, you know, introduce this lazy regulation where it's pay to play. Yeah. And if you can't afford to pay, then you don't play. See you later.
It's textbook
And now
capitalism.
Little Rips, they're making like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with making cereals, but they're making cereal and they're not even putting CBD in it now. It's just like, why have you done that?
Marketing and gimmicks and novelty, and it's a strange fucking reality. And I think we said before that there are passionate people, but often their ethics has limited their opportunity to exploit the ignorance of the public around CBD. So a lot of the companies that got big, they provided shit products, very low grade products. They marketed heavily. They advertised with various people. They got contracts for sponsorship around sports stars, etc. They built their brands. They invested smart. They went and sided with either the CTA or the CMC or ACI cartel. Oh, pardon me, been waiting for that one.
Which is now all one and, well, it isn't one and the same, but you know, Tom Wetton is, or as I don't know, I haven't looked at it recently, but he was sharing information with previous information that had been gathered with the CTA, was then using that to make cold calls to customers on behalf of the ACI. He took that data with him and was using it, as I say, to contact people that hadn't been, you know, it was like companies were being phoned up by the ACI and being told that if they didn't use them to go to make this application, then they could kiss goodbye to their business, basically.
Yeah, so the novel foods sort of racket and cartel system that was set up is something that we're going to try and cover in depth on this with the future guest. Just trying to figure out who would be the best person to really get into it, because it's going to be not so much boring, but there's going to be a lot of nitty-gritty understanding of what occurred, because it's a very tight time schedule for how this got taken over and for the very nefarious actions that led to it. As far as my last sort of look into things, I'm aware that I think the ACI have just launched an international office in Brussels, so they're going to take on Europe, it would seem. So we do have some comfort in the fact that the European Industrial Hemp Association and a few other quite large bodies are starting to pull together and starting to have more in-depth conversations, it would appear, from the ripples in the water that I've seen. I think there is movement amongst the players who kind of got themselves into that fortunate position but turned down that monolith of individuals, the monolith that's built of those collective companies, majority of them international players. They're resisting against this, but as you said, there is going to be this potential apocalypse for all of these brands that built the industry. They built the market. They were out there working the fucking market stalls when nobody knew what this was, and they had to explain it 47 times a day to every person passing. They were the ones who rallied to get articles in newspapers. They were the ones who pushed magazines that are now become entire cannabis magazines based around medical cannabis and hemp and CBD and whatever. And it's just ad revenue generation. There's no real journalism. There's no real true education beyond informing the customer enough on how to consume your products. I was sat with a scientist the other day, and we were talking about molecular research in terms of metabolism and research in terms of what happens with cannabinoids breaking down, etc. None of the big boys are really interested in this. They don't really care how the product works. They're only interested in proving the product works. If you can get something that is accepted in medical trials, then you've got a medical product that has efficacy. Doesn't matter that they don't have to explain or understand the mechanism by which it works. They don't even have to understand if you're then ingesting a substance that then is changing its molecular structure to then into criminalized products. So if then CBD is modulated and converted into THC as is theorized through a few academic papers,
yeah,
what you're doing is selling somebody that then through their action they're breaking a legislation. So there's so many gray areas with all of this crossover legislation from the past 50 years. And at some point, they're going to have to either look at this or do what they're doing now, which is continue to patch over the cracks. And that's all this is. They're just trying to get rid of anybody that's going to talk against them. Anyone that goes, if you keep quiet when this comes, you guys got it. You guys got it. Just keep towing the party line. And that's basically where we are, because I've seen some great companies that are on the verge, like absolutely on the verge, that previously would kind of nod to me at events and whatever else that I've now had hour-long conversations with, that are suddenly like, actually, you know, I've watched your shit over the years, etc., but I didn't kind of believe it. You know what I mean? I've had the number of people who've come to me eating humble pie, and that's not to say, oh, I'm mint and I predicted all this shit. That's not what I'm saying. But I spent the past few years really going, that's what I fear. And no matter how loud I've shouted, no matter how loud anybody has kind of shouted, there's more voices have come to this. We have still not yet managed to sort of gain any real traction, unfortunately.
So no, look, the way that I see it is like that model is transferred over into the cannabis industrial model, because that's different. The corporatized model, say, and what I mean by that is, if you look at what was mentioned for cereals and whatnot, I've said it very flippantly on a couple of previous podcasts that, you know, you go into any convenience store and the majority of things in there are there to fucking kill you in the long term. Do you know that kind of way? Like, because of the ingredients of whatever makes up the fucking object that's being sold. This is an age-old practice. This is not surprising. This is what I don't get. How did you see it not going this way? Of course it's gonna go fucking this way, because it exists. It exists back in fucking Heinz Beans shit days, like, do you know that kind of way? Kellogg's and all of these wars were happening, and people were being wiped out, and legislation were being put in place that I'm almost certain one of the fucking cereal manufacturers has a royal commission on the side of the box. On every...
Yeah, Kellogg's does.
Does. There you go. Are you telling me that's not fucking capitalist that's not preferentially capitalist? That's, of course it fucking is. They're giving you the fucking nudge there, like, you know, that kind of, there's the approval, like or the legislation or the bump that you need to make the most out of the situation, and that is exactly what's going to what has been happening in the cannabis industry in that regard. You're going to have people that are going to come in that are happy with the fucking whatever's in place, to kind of go, I can make shit. I can make a lot of fucking money here, you know, that kind of way, and all I have to do is delay this or just string for as long as I fucking can, and it just keeps coming in, and I can inform my mates, and you know, I can get people that are business minded and educated and run the country involved, you know, that kind of way. I mean, you said, Simpa, that you think that the government are more informed than we think that they are. They fucking are. They are. To a point where I watched the Commons thing. I said it, you know, in a previous podcast. I've watched the whole thing. And almost everything we've discussed on this podcast, almost everything was presented to fucking Kate Malthouse and all the opposition on the opposite benches, and they didn't bat a fucking eyelid. They know this stuff. Of course they fucking do. They're waiting for that moment. You know, that kind of way? And it is going to come in the short term. You are right. and it's not going to be what we like, and we are going to have to fight against it. But this is where it circles back around, right? This is where getting back out on your local streets is why it's important. This is why it's important to extend the conversation, not just to inform people about the benefits of cannabis for me and all this kind of stuff. You've got to go one step further. You've got to make them not think, every time I see a green leaf or whatever, that's actually all right, because I had this conversation. No, the what's embedded in that mindset is, or what should be embedded in that mindset is, this helps people that I know, and that's why I care about it. Not that it's okay in my mindset now that it's been explained to me, but even though I don't use it or whatever, it doesn't really affect me. But if you can actually, on a local level, on a very simple base interaction level in your community, have that go one step further, so that those people actually care, actually empathize, that people fucking need this change, not just for cannabis, but politically, for your fucking local environment or whatever. I feel like I'm rabbiting on, by the way. Have you paused? Oh no, you're moving. Okay, great. Sorry about that. But do you see it? I was just trying to circle in what we were all talking about. It is all interconnected, and we need to find that base level. We need to restore that base level of respect in terms of communication with your fellow, I don't know, neighbor. Neighbor's a better word. There you go. What do you think about that, Simpa? Did I lose you for once?
No, that was perfect. A great summation, and yeah, you circled it back to the original points and covered the two main sort of arguments here. Is that
I do try.
People are the change. It is the actions of the few. I used an analogy on somebody else's podcast that I was on the other night of, it's the drops of water that make up the current that erodes the stone, that creates the new channels. We think of the body of water, but to generate that water is the drop by drop by drop it builds. And with each drop is as powerful as it is, because some total of the parts are greater than that of, the sum total of the whole is greater than that of the parts. And that's what we really need to incentivize. It's what I was saying before about leadership. We're not looking for some eloquent speaking Jesus type to come and go, that's the Messiah, let's follow this guy into the right world. It's not that, because no one individual can. We are limited by our intellect, our scope. No one can be intelligent enough, conscious enough, and aware of enough diverse information and data to make a true informed decision. There's the idea of electing one man and going, well, this brave actor, this fucking I can't remember what word I was just going for there, but sort of this individual who is capable, competent, powerful, intellectual, the kind of ideals that people have ascribed to these leaders, whether everyone agrees with that consensus thought or not. But yeah, that is long gone. That doesn't work anymore. We're recognizing that if you put a heterosexual, cisgendered white male in charge, what are they going to know about racism? What are they going to know about feminist issues? What are they going to know about trans rights? What are they going to, you know what I mean? If you then get only people from a certain financial threshold and class into power, what are they going to know about deprivation? You see this thing in the media all the time of politicians being asked, well, how much is a loaf of bread? How much is a pint of milk? The real question should be, how much is fucking rent? How much is your gas bill? They're the questions that should be answered. And these are things that run off into their expensive. They never think of it. It takes up every goddamn year, and they don't know, because all they do is they sign a little piece of paper and away it goddamn goes. They are so detached from the day-to-day mechanisms and systems that we all live under. And I think this is why I rally for cannabis, and why I believe that ending cannabis prohibition is the first step towards this. Because once we can stop the arbitrary criminalization of individuals for choosing to alter their consciousness, the idea of us berating each other for sort of tiny or insignificant, seemingly in the grand scale, some insignificant differences, and we can then actually find the commonality of going, it's going to sound hippie-ish, but the thing of like tackling litter, tackling the way people sort of park, the way we travel, the way we engage with the world, the way we consume, the houses that we live in, the amount of space that we think we need, the idea of buying totems to extend our importance. Look at my car, look at my watch, look at my shoes.
See what you did there, fella. You even drew out the vowel sounds like a prick.
Hey, I'm sometimes I'm pretty good at this thing. But yeah, my point is that once you smoke weed, I've got mates at the minute that are taking tolerance breaks and stuff because they can't handle the introspection of cannabis right now. They're going through some tough shit. They've made a plan of what they can do, but they have to wait till the plan goes. They don't want to be consuming cannabis to be overthinking it and making that point. So that is some people's resistance to it. I get that. But that power, that mechanism that some people find as paranoia is actually just a tickling. It's a little scratch of something in your brain trying to break down that barrier, that cognitive barrier that holds these two juxtaposing truths. Cannabis is really good for me. I enjoy it and it's brilliant. Everyone should be free to have it. I'm doing fuck all about the fact that it's illegal. Do you know what I mean? It's and it can tickle into that, and then you don't have to go out in the street with a banner and scream and shout about it. You start with the small conversations, as we've been saying throughout this podcast. Find somebody that you have as a confidant, someone that you can talk about. You see somebody suffering, someone has a physical ailment that you believe could be improved by the consumption of cannabis. Have that quiet conversation. The worst they can do is tell you to go away. You know what I mean? We're past the point of you mentioning the name of the dangerous C word, in this case, cannabis, getting you, funny looks, getting you ostracized or demonized, even in most workplaces. Now it's a topic around most water coolers. You can go in with the soft touch of CBD or hemp or whatever, but it very quickly can snowball into a point of acceptability for people to recognize the true potentiality of this plant to save humanity from its own self-destruction.
Poignant and yes, that.
2 of those, please.
2 of those.
I guess since that was such a good point, we'll bring on to the last question, Debs, the final question that we ask everybody. Be an interesting one, actually, given your trajectory. I'm quite interested to hear the answer to this one. This is a question, like I said, we ask every guest, and that is, what does the future hold for you?
I've been moving towards living by the sea. I don't know how or where, but that is definitely something on my horizon. And aside from that, oh my God, there's a kid smashing a bottle on my window. Okay, sorry.
Do you need to go and sort that out?
Yeah, no, there was a parent with it. That eventually
with it, I love it.
Yeah, so I fucking hate kids. That's not entirely true. Most of them I do. Yeah, I don't know. I don't live too much in the future. The power for me and with cannabis is that it brings me here and now, and it's not to say that I don't lend thought to the future or the past. But I definitely don't linger in either of them. I'm very much in the here and now. So, yeah, but coastal. You'll find me coastal in the next 5 years.
Good stuff.
Be mindful of where you obviously build your house, given the eroding shores and rising sea levels and whatnot.
Coastal, but on a hill. There you go. Sorted. Easy.
You get sea wind, though. That can be brutal. Especially
you're from the north. What are you complaining about?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Paddle boards. Get a paddle board, you'll be fine.
Yeah, man, I've seen so many people doing paddleboard yoga. That was something I actually wanted to talk to you, but we sadly went out of time, which means we'll have to get you back on again to discuss many other things. Oh, I did also want to say, just quietly on a personal note, I've got a Trinity hemp yoga mat now.
Oh,
the lovely Herb bought me one for my birthday.
I don't know what that means. But it sounds like
it's a yoga mat made of cannabis. It makes me very happy. Smoking weed,
cool.
stretching on weed. It is super cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. I just wanted to let the world know that I have this, and it is so super fucking awesome. Anyway, check out. I'm gonna give them a free plug because they're actually that cool. Check out the cupboard online where you can purchase them from Trinity Hemp Yoga. I think that's what they're called, aren't they? Just Trinity Hemp. Anyway, thank you very much, Debs, like I said, for stepping in last minute.
Pleasure.
Excellent. Maka, thank you as always as well for making it for this and for doing all of the magic wizardry and the things that I see clicking away while I'm trying to come up with these poignant points to please the people. That was
I'm already ahead of you now. We did Patreon, we did Simpa Life. He's got a blog out next week sometime. There's the cupboard online.co.uk, and there is Deborah's Instagram in case you want to connect. How about that?
Yeah, do check out, post some lovely content of her little boy George, as in dog fairy child. I think is that how they describe these things. They're fur baby, I think is the term.
Fur baby.
Yep. That is so fun to fucking say. Anyway, folks, thank you for listening to us waffle on. As always, you can find us on Patreon at Patreon/Simpa Life, everywhere on social media at Simpa Life. We're going to be uploading a couple of other podcasts that I've done recently onto the Simpa Life YouTube soon, as well as some of the back catalogue videos that I've recently just stumbled across on a hard drive. So that'll be fun for you all to check out. Anyway, I've been Simpa. Our wonderful guest has been Deborah Wilbee. Maka has been Maka with the thumbs up there. And thank you as always for listening, folks. See you next week.
Bye.